When the male-led, Ito-jo, showed up, Liu Ruyan was already pregnant with my kid. But, even so, it still couldn't stop the destined plotline. Back then, just to be with me, she was willing to cut ties with her family. But later, she fell for the male-led and hated my guts. Even looking at me made her sick. And so I lost absolutely everything. Lost her love, and even lost my child. Until an evening, 5 years later, a little kid knocked on my door. Keeping a straight face like a little adult, he said, "Mom doesn't want me anymore. Can I stay with you?" I froze for a second, speechless. Little Chen pursed his lips, looking unhappy. Tilting his pretty little face up, he stated matter-of-factly, "My teacher said, parents have a responsibility and obligation to raise their children." Pushing the door completely open, interrupted his sentence. I stepped aside and said calmly, "Come in." The dim yellow light inside illuminated his slightly widened eyes. His eyes twinkled for some reason. He raised his chin, gave a little oof, and obediently walked in. I closed the door. Turning around, I saw little Chen curiously looking all over the place. Seeing me looking at him, he immediately looked away. Gripping his backpack straps nervously, he tensed his little face and said, "My name is Ji Xiaoken." It sounded like an introduction, but also like a reminder. A reminder that he is the child of me and Liu Ruyan. I knew, from the very first glance, I was sure of who he was, because his eyes look exactly like Liu Ruyan's. Seeming disappointed by my calm reaction, he turned his head away unhappily, refusing to look at me. I placed his tiny yellow backpack by the entryway, and took him to wash his hands. I said, "Let's eat first." Little Chen obediently mumbled an okay. By the time I brought the food out, he had already climbed onto a chair by himself. I asked him why he suddenly came looking for me. Little Chen buried his head, poking at the greens in his bowl. His little head was round and covered in dark hair. He mumbled unclearly, "I had a fight with Mom. She kicked me out." He probably ran away from home throwing a tantrum. In that case, Liu Ruyan should be coming to pick him up soon. After all, 5 years ago, to fight for Xiaoken's custody, things got really ugly between us. How could she possibly not want him now? I paused with my chopsticks, unable to explain exactly how I felt in that moment. I had no idea Xiaoken was coming to find me tonight, so I only prepared 2 simple dishes and a soup. He was a very picky eater. He wouldn't eat green onions or carrots. After picking everything out, there was nothing left to eat. Little Chen stared bitterly at the shredded cabbage leaves, sneakily glanced at me, and guiltily swallowed them down. When we first met, earlier, he still had a bit of arrogance and spoiled brat vibes. Now, being a picky eater who hates veggies, I figured he must have been totally pampered in the Liu household, getting whatever he wanted. He shouldn't have suffered any grievances. I felt a bit relieved. After washing the dishes, I waited for the Liu family to pick him up. I ended up waiting until 9:30 p.m. A 6-year-old kid gets sleepy early. He dug his pajamas out of his backpack, looked around with his big eyes, and pouted, "There's only one bedroom. Are we squeezing into one bed tonight?" I glanced at the clock on the wall. For some reason, the Liu family still hadn't sent anyone over. I had no choice but to compromise. I shrugged and said, "Yeah, you're sleeping with me tonight." I thought little Chen would throw a fit. After all, a shabby 1-bedroom apartment obviously isn't as comfy as living in the Liu mansion, but little Chen just pursed his lips, his eyes flickering. After washing his face, he huffed and puffed, changed into his PJs, and kicked his legs as he climbed into bed. Just like at dinner, even though he looked disgusted, he didn't say a word, and finished the veggies I gave him. He wiggled around under the covers, making a little mountain out of the blanket. He pulled out a fairy tale book from who knows where, and peeked out at me with just his eyes showing. I couldn't help but urge him, "Dad, aren't you going to tuck me in?" I helplessly facepalmed. He looked pretty thrilled about it. After getting little Chen to sleep, I found Liu Ruyan's number on my phone. I hesitated for a long time, but still didn't know. Make the call. Liu Ruyan and I had been apart for 5 years. At first, we both thought we could fight fate. Back then, even when my family suddenly went bankrupt, and the Liu family called off the engagement, secretly arranging her marriage to another family behind her back, setting her up with Ito-jo, just to be with me. She recklessly broke the engagement with Ito-jo, and because she wanted to cut ties with her family. She was locked up by Father Liu for half a month. Unable to leave, she went on a hunger strike to rebel. I knelt at her door for a whole night, until dawn, when she threw herself in my arms crying. I thought things would get better. The bankruptcy would pass. Liu Ruyan would be fine. Our future would be okay. But it wasn't. My marriage with Liu Ruyan was blessed by absolutely no one. Maybe because Liu Ruyan was so unwavering in her love for me from start to finish. Even when times got impossibly hard after she got pregnant she never once thought about getting rid of the baby. So, no matter how exhausted or broke I was determined to hold this family together. Later the child was born, and both mother and son were safe. I worked even harder to make money. Life was slowly getting back on track, until an accident happened. The timber on the tower crane slipped off the hook, and the heavy wood smashed into my head. I lost consciousness instantly. My coworkers called her over and over, but Liu Ruyan never picked up. They rushed me to the hospital. By the time I woke up, I saw a cold and indifferent Liu Ruyan. I had no idea why a person could change so drastically overnight, to the point where her eyes were full of unfamiliarity and disgust when she looked at me. So much so that when she left us, she didn't even say goodbye. Ito Joe came to see me. From his mouth, I learned the truth about this world, because the system dropped him in at the wrong time. By the time the late male lead appeared, the female lead had already developed feelings for someone else. As the price for fixing this error, the female lead's incorrect feelings started to invert. However much she loved me before, she hates me exactly that much now. Ito Joe looked at me with a mix of pity and mockery. Before leaving, he glanced at little Chen and asked in a low voice, "Have you ever thought about what will happen to your kid in the future?" I suddenly froze, feeling lost. I didn't know who to hate. Should I hate Liu Ruyan for betraying me? But she couldn't even control her own feelings. Should I hate fate? But what good does hating do? I can't change anything. At that time, on their way to the hospital to visit me, my parents got into a car crash. They fell into a coma, and might be in a vegetative state for the rest of their lives. I was on the verge of a total breakdown. Replaying over and over in my head were the words Ito Joe said. I just felt like this screwed up world was absolutely trash. When I pushed open the window and looked down, little Chen suddenly started wailing. In a daze, I thought to myself, if I die, what will happen to my son? Will this world even allow him to exist? Could Ito Joe ever accept, or would he be despised by Liu Ruyan, just like me, and then abandoned by his mother, all over again? Finally, silently, dying exactly as everyone hoped he would. At that moment, it felt like a voice was whispering to me, "Take him with you." Moving like a zombie, I walked over to the bed and picked him up with trembling hands. But the next second, he suddenly stopped crying, staring up at me with his red, teary eyes, like no matter where I went, he had made up his mind to stick with me. I suddenly snapped away, waving my hands as if to scatter that non-existent hell. As a father, if all I wanted to do was run away, wouldn't I be a total failure of a dad? It hit me then, under Ito Joe's manipulation, what kind of messed up thing I was about to do. After Liu Ruyan went back, old man Liu quickly demanded to see me. He wanted to fight me for custody of the kid. His point was simple. A kid under 2 is legally guaranteed to go to the mother, not to mention the massive gap in our family's finances. When I was young, I didn't know what struggling meant. The guy who used to casually blow millions without blinking was now actually this, down and out. From beginning to end, Liu Ruyan never showed up. She hated me so much, she couldn't even stand to look at me. So I lost completely. Lost the love of my life, and lost my kid, until someone nudged my arm, snapping me back to reality. Little Chen kept his eyes closed, grunted, and curled up like he finally found a comfy spot. Sleeping soundly, he nervously clutched the corner of my shirt tight, terrified that I'd vanish the second he opened his eyes. Looking at that innocent, childish face, I couldn't help but let out a soft sigh. If he knew his own dad once thought about taking him away with him, would he still have come looking for me? He'd probably hate my guts, wouldn't he? Morning came, and Liu Ruyan still didn't show up. I had no idea what she was playing at. Back then, the Liu family made the custody battle so ugly, but now they just drop him like it's nothing. I woke little Chen up bright and early, and drove him to school. His kindergarten isn't in the same city as me, but luckily it was just an hour's drive away. Before getting out, he demanded I come pick him up right after school, whining and clinging to me, refusing to let go, until he spotted a specific car in front of the kindergarten, and his eyes lit up. He eagerly dragged me over, walking fast, then deliberately slowed down, pretending to casually block a chubby kid who had just gotten out. He did it right in front of him, clearly on purpose. Little Chen swung our held hands right in front of the kid's face. Then, super loudly, making sure everyone could hear, he asked me, "Dad, you're coming to pick me up after school, right?" That was the first time little Chen had ever called me Dad. Maybe because I'd been absent for a whole 5 years. Even when he knocked on my door yesterday, he never initiated calling me Dad. The chubby kid stared straight at me, saying in disbelief, "If you actually have a dad, why has he never dropped you off before?" Little Chen scoffed, giving him major side-eye and saying, "My dad is a super busy guy. He specifically took time off today just to drop me off." He put heavy emphasis on the word, specifically. Holding my hand, he walked right up to the kindergarten gates in front of everyone, flexing like he wanted the whole world to see. Before we parted ways, he asked again, all fidgety, "You're really coming to get me, right?" Seeing I didn't say anything, he glared at me. Then, looking panicked, he whispered, "You promised me in the car." Adults aren't supposed to lie. I knelt down, feeling helpless, and folded down his popped collar. I smoothed out his messy hair. It was dark and soft, and felt really nice. I smiled and said, "All right, I'll come pick you up." He couldn't stop grinning, but tried hard to keep a straight face. Acting all mature, he raised his chin and said reservedly, "I'll remember to wait for you." It wasn't until his figure completely disappeared from sight that I finally looked away. I went to find his teacher and asked about how little Chen was doing in kindergarten. The teacher hemmed and hawed, finally letting out a sigh, and frowned, complaining a bit. "I know saying this might not change anything, but Mr. G, no matter how busy you are, you can't just completely neglect your child. Since he enrolled, no one has ever shown up for a parent-teacher conference. Now, all the kids are whispering that he doesn't have parents set. If this keeps up, it's really bad for his mental and emotional development. No one's ever come to a parent-teacher conference. Even if Liu Ruyan can't stand the kid, couldn't she just send a nanny or the butler? Is she really that lazy about it?" I furrowed my brows, pulled up Liu Ruyan's number, hesitated for a sec, and finally dialed IT. I decided to have a serious talk with her. If Liu Ruyan isn't planning to raise him anymore, I could just take him back with me. While I can't give him the crazy rich lifestyle of the Liu family, I can still give him a decent life and the freedom to choose. Just as the call went through, a ringtone went off right behind me. Realizing what it was, my fingers twitched. I turned around, only to see someone stepping out of her car. Liu Ruyan. 5 years had passed. She seemed to have changed, but also stayed exactly the same. She was half squinting at her lit-up phone screen. Her fingers were slender and pale. Her cold, aloof face was cast in the shadows. She slowly raised an eyebrow, then suddenly looked up. She said, "Long time no see. Wanna talk?" Unlike my miserable and pathetic state these past few years, Liu Ruyan remained as elegant and composed as ever. Her features were exactly as I remembered. The way she looked at me was inexplicably deep. It felt like even the dappled light filtering through the branches was playing favorites with her. I heard the jewelry brand she founded took the world by storm. I heard she took over the Liu Group. I heard she got married years ago but never had kids. The memories I had deliberately buried deep down came rushing back like a tidal wave. A sharp, subtle pain crept into my chest. It wasn't until the moment I saw her that I realized. I thought I had let her go. Turns out, I hadn't. In our youth, the way she'd get teary-eyed bandaging my wounds, the way she smiled and accepted when I proposed to her with a ring woven from grass, no one could have imagined that we'd end up in such an ugly state today. Actually, she didn't change. She just doesn't love me anymore. That's all. It really has been a long, long time. Liu Ruyan was silent the whole way. We found a nearby cafe. Before the coffee even arrived, covering up my nerves, I cut straight to the chase about the kid. Do you still want him? Over these past 5 years, I had intensely, almost torturously fantasized about reuniting with Liu Ruyan, so much so that right now, I could perfectly fake being indifferent. Liu Ruyan looked up and glanced at me. Without a hint of hesitation, she said softly, "Of course I do." I frowned, staring at the street sign outside the floor-to-ceiling window. I gave a low hum and stood up. I said, "Then remember to pick him up after school. If you don't have time for the parent-teacher conferences, you can let me know. I won't bother you guys." I still couldn't bring myself to say Ito Joe's name out loud. I couldn't help but clench my fists, the sting keeping me grounded. I forced myself to say, "I won't intrude on your life together." I glanced at my watch and was about to leave. As we brushed past each other, I just heard Liu Ruyan ask out of nowhere, "So all you want to talk to me about right now is little Chen?" My footsteps halted, totally confused. The stuff between us was settled 5 years ago. She married someone else, and I left like a stray dog. It was that simple. Aside from little Chen, what else was there for us to talk about? Liu Ruyan let out a soft scoff. Her pitch-black pupils stared right at me. She opened her mouth again and said, "Fine then. I don't want little Chen anymore." Saying it with such conviction, like she wasn't the one suddenly changing her mind. I furrowed my brows, and couldn't help but ask what she meant. Liu Ruyan slightly lifted her chin, gesturing to the seat opposite her, signaling for me to sit back down. She said, "Exactly what it sounds like. You want to raise the kid. Fine, the kid is yours." She blinked and added, "However, considering little Chen's mental and physical health, every Friday night, I'll come over to your current placey to provide necessary joint companionship for little Chen, and I'll leave on Monday morning." Watching her act so willfully and unreasonably, I just found it absurd. I couldn't take it anymore, and reminded her, "We're already divorced." Liu Ruyan let out a chuckle and said, "Are we?" She wagged her finger. "I never signed." It took me a second to process what that meant. Back when we went to court and signed the divorce papers, I just thought Liu Ruyan loathed me so much that she didn't even want to see me one last time. So, she just never showed up from start to finish. She said she never signed it, but then why wait 5 years to come find me? I wasn't delusional enough to think she still had any feelings for me. Maybe that original agreement got lost, or maybe there was some error in it that required signing a supplementary agreement. Anything was possible. I shrugged and played along, saying, "Then let's sign a new one." Without even looking up, Liu Ruyan said, "No." I reasoned with her, calmly, "Wouldn't it be better if we sign it and settle everything?" She said, "No." Exasperated, I asked, "What are you worried about?" "I won't take a dime. Consider it me walking away with nothing." She said, "Don't want to." 3 no's in a row left me feeling helpless and dazed. Maybe Liu Ruyan herself doesn't remember, but she was just like this when she was a teenager. That day was my birthday party. Someone cornered Liu Ruyan, looking at her with blatant disrespect, talking trash. Afraid of causing trouble for the G family, Liu Ruyan pressed her lips together and stayed silent, just enduring. The very next second, with a splash, I kicked the guy right into the pool. It caused a huge scene. The guests were all prominent figures in the city. The elders of the families did not look happy. When asked what happened, both sides had a different story. To smooth things over, my dad insisted I apologize. I refused to admit I was wrong, so I took a beating from him with a stick. Unsurprisingly, I got locked in my room. While I was lying on my bed, groaning in pain, Liu Ruyan pushed the door open and came in. She was holding a first aid kit. With red eyes, she wanted to bandage me up. She annoyedly scolded me. "Actually, you didn't have to kick him. Just let him finish talking. He wouldn't have dared do anything to me." I felt really guilty, and whispered, "I'm sorry." She paused for a second, gave a soft, "Oh," and then said, "I'm not listening." I smiled helplessly, reaching out for the medicine. I said, "Let me do it myself." She swatted my hand away and said, "No." My arm was hurt, and I couldn't help but wince. She looked panicked. "Does it hurt a lot?" I smiled and replied, "I'm fine. Just a scratch," she said, no pretending to be tough. She tapped my forehead, frowning. "In front of me you're never allowed to pretend you're tough." I snapped out of it, trying my best to hide the bitterness in my eyes. But it felt like I was hearing her say it again. That same no pretending from all those years ago. Liu Ruyan sat in the light, smiling faintly. Specks of dust caught the scattered light, drifting down. Even her silhouette had quietly changed over the years. She looked up and raised an eyebrow at me, as if answering what I'd said earlier. She said, "Boda, things will never be settled between us." I don't quite remember how it ended. All I remember is being so pissed off I left without even saying bye, because things blew up with Liu Ruyan. I wasn't sure if she was just talking smack, or if she actually planned on doing it. I hesitated for a bit, but didn't go back. Maybe it was because I'd been working so much out lately, and just wanted a day to chill. Or maybe it was the guilt of missing 5 years as a dad acting up. Ooh, I didn't want to break my promise to little Chen. I waited until 4:30 p.m. when kindergarten let out. Most of the kids at this school come from loaded families. Among all the fancy cars coming and going, I saw a Bentley pull up right in front of little Chen. So I didn't step forward. I turned around and slowly walked back the way I came. Suddenly, all the overthinking I did earlier felt hilarious. What was I even thinking? How could she seriously just let her kid go off with me? The Bentley drove off quickly, kicking up a thick cloud of dust as it passed. For some reason, that little innocent face popped into my head. We'll probably never see each other again. Like something possessed me, I glanced back one last time. With the car gone, the other side of the street came into view. Little Chen was standing all alone at the kindergarten gates. His big round eyes locked right onto mine. His face lit up, and he started to sprint toward me. But the teacher next to him stuck an arm out to stop him. He scrunched up his little face, looking a bit pissed off as he said something to her, afraid he'd just dash across the street. By the time I realized what I was doing, I had already taken a few steps toward him on autopilot. Once the teacher saw me, she felt okay letting little Chen go. He ran over totally out of breath. His dark eyes were practically sparkling. He only slowed down once he got close. Still, trying to play it cool. Shy, but super happy, he said, You really came to pick me up." His soft little hand hesitantly grabbed onto my fingers. When I didn't pull away, he pressed his lips together, snuck a peek up at me, and squeezed even tighter. I just gave a soft, A bit unsure, I asked him, "Aren't you going with Mom?" At the mention of Liu Ruyan, little Chen's face puffed up like a blowfish, like a tiny propane tank ready to blow at the slightest spark. He said, "I don't want her. And she didn't come to pick me up anyway. She said it's too hard for you to drop me off and pick me up every day, and that you'd get super annoyed if I kept bugging you to get me. She told me not to mess with your work schedule." Looking like a kid with a plan, he seemed to be comparing himself to Liu Ruyan, dead serious. "So proud," he added. "I'm not as dumb as her anyway. Today I talked to the teacher about transferring schools. That way, you won't have to spend so much time driving me to school anymore." He lifted his little face, staring at me expectantly, like he was just waiting for me to praise him. I couldn't resist giving his little head a pat. We got stuck in traffic for ages on the way home, picked up some spinach at the market. It was getting dark. I was holding little Chen's hand as we walked home. He suddenly remembered something, and mumbled casually, "Oh, right, Dad, a driver is picking me up after school tomorrow. Mom said I need to go home tomorrow to grab all my clean clothes, but I am totally coming back here to sleep. Don't you dare forget about me." Tomorrow was Friday, and I just, subconsciously, tightened my grip on the plastic bag full of ingredients for braised pork. After a brief pause, I said, "Okay, kids have the attention spans of goldfish. Maybe after one weekend back home getting spoiled, he'd forget all about this. I treat every single meeting like it's the very last time, because only then can I survive the endless waiting without feeling totally crushed." Friday night, 10:30 p.m. Little Chen still hadn't come back. I calmly gathered up the pajamas little Chen had tossed on the floor that morning, and shoved the extra food I cooked into the fridge. I turned off the lights, spaced out in the dark for a while, closed my eyes. When I woke up, the sound of heavy rain was beating against the window. It was barely dawn. I had had nightmares all night. Woke up with a splitting headache, throbbing in waves. There were a few unread messages on my phone. Yesterday, right before I left, little Chen grabbed my pant leg, pestering me for my phone number. The earliest voice message was sent at midnight, sounding a bit guilty. like he was trying to explain himself but also being defensive. He said, "I didn't mean to be late. I had my clothes ready at 6. But Mom got sick again. It looks like she doesn't have the energy to drop me off. She's so annoying." The second message was sent half an hour later, very cautiously with a hint of a crying tone. "Are you mad? Do you not want me again? I don't want to stay here either. But there's nothing I can do. I don't have the driver uncle's phone number." The last one was from 10 minutes ago. He took a picture of the instructions for some fever meds, asking me what it said, and also asking if a kid could take this medicine. I quickly called him back. The call connected instantly. From the other end came a sobbing voice. "Dad." My phone automatically went on Do Not Disturb during the night. I couldn't even imagine how panicked and terrified little Chen must have been all night. At a time like this, I had to keep it together. I took a deep breath, gripping my phone tight. I asked calmly, "Do you have a fever? Where exactly does it hurt?" A sneeze came through the receiver. He didn't answer my question. Instead, he asked tentatively, sounding stuffed up, "Dad, can you come get me?" I knew it. I couldn't say no. Following the location little Chen sent, I found a villa complex in the city. Seems like someone gave a heads up beforehand. The security guards didn't give me a hard time. They just let me right in. Standing at the front door, I just had this weird feeling that this villa looked a lot like my old house. Just as I was about to ring the bell, a hand blocked me right before I could press it. On the doorbell screen, I saw the reflection of Ito Zhou. My heart sank. A nerve in my brain instantly pulled taut. Ito Zhou furrowed his brows, looking like he couldn't comprehend. He put his left hand on my shoulder and asked, "Jiboda, what are you doing here?" I shoved him away, meeting his shocked gaze. I said deadpan, "I'm here to pick up little Chen." Ito Zhou paused, seeming to think of something, and said pointedly, "Honestly, I really shouldn't have fought you for custody back then." He pushed up his glasses and said in an exasperated tone, "You know how it is. Ruyan doesn't like the kid, and he's so stubborn and difficult, a real pain to deal with. Refuses to call me dad, no matter what." He said, "Oh, right. Didn't you experience this yourself before? Going against the main character never ends well." His casually thrown out, mocking sentence threw me right back to that freezing winter 5 years ago. But this time I shot straight back. He has a dad. He doesn't need to recognize a second one. As for you saying, it won't end well. I took a step closer to him, staring dead into his eyes. I said, word by word, "Since you know exactly what happened back then, you should know damn well that I have absolutely nothing left to lose. Nothing more can be taken from me. Go ahead and try to prove what you just said." I smiled and said, "Anyway, my life isn't worth much. If that day really comes, I'll make sure to take you straight to hell with me before I go." Cho subconsciously took a step back. Seems like he didn't expect me to threaten him so directly. He gritted his teeth, but didn't say anything. Ignoring him, I walked right up and pressed the doorbell. Not long after, the door was pushed open, revealing a sickly, exhausted face. Liu Ruyan. It seemed she really didn't expect to see me here. She blurted out, "Why are you?" Her eyes trailed past me, and she coldly said, "Get out." Because Ito Zhou showed up. So, is everything from 5 years ago going to repeat itself? I gave a self-deprecating smirk. I said, "Don't worry. I'll grab little Chen and leave." But, to my surprise, like she couldn't take it anymore, she grabbed my wrist, and without a word, yanked me into the house. With a cold face, she slammed the door shut. Before the door closed, I watched Ito Zhou's newly formed smirk instantly freeze on his face. I stared blankly at Liu Ruyan. Did she mistake me for someone else? But the scorching heat, where our skin touched, told me it wasn't an illusion. Liu Ruyan muttered an explanation. "I wasn't talking to you." It finally clicked. I realized I'd probably misunderstood something. Feeling a bit awkward, I pulled my hand back. She just stared down at her empty hand. My heart couldn't help but skip a beat. Then, she called the security guards and said coldly, "Didn't I tell you not to let him in?" From the receiver came a flurry of panicked apologies. It seemed they were explaining something. Not long after, Liu Ruyan hung up. The other end sent over a security video. She shoved the phone at me. I looked totally confused, not getting it. So she started explaining. "I never told Ito Zhou to come over. He sneaked in behind you. Seeing me not take the phone, she irritably shoved the phone into my palm, and then carefully closed my fingers over it, one by one. Dead serious, she said. Hold on to the evidence. But I caught a faint whiff of alcohol. Doesn't Liu Ruyan get drunk after just one glass? I belatedly realized that the Liu Ruyan standing in front of me right now really wasn't acting like her usual self. My vision went dark. Besides me, probably no one knows just how impossible Liu Ruyan is to deal with when she's drunk. Pressured by Liu Ruyan's intense stare, I gritted my teeth and watched the whole security clip under her supervision. She stayed right next to me the whole time. When the video ended, she urged me to speak with her eyes, like she was waiting for my review of the footage. I gave a nervous chuckle, awkwardly forcing a change of topic, and kindly pointed out, "You seem to have a fever." She reached out and felt my forehead, seemed to seriously think about it for a second, then said completely deadpan, I think so. She's totally gone. Hopeless." I couldn't help but sigh, but then I saw little Chen, huffing and puffing, dragging a suitcase out of the room. Seeing me by the entrance, he froze. He just dropped the suitcase that was as tall as his shoulder. With red eyes, he started lunging towards me. "Dad." Looking unhappy, Liu Ruyan swatted away little Chen's hands that were hugging my leg. Looking indignant, she said, "Don't go calling him whatever you want. This is my husband." Little Chen was pushed back, stumbling. He was so mad, he was about to cry. His little face was flushed from the fever. Scowling, he glared at her fiercely. "Are you a bandit? Dad is clearly here to get me." My ears hurt. Chirping back and forth, it felt like I was raising two sparrows. Before I could even speak, with a cold face, Liu Ruyan dragged me into the bedroom. Not backing down, little Chen kicked his short little legs to follow, but she just stuck out an index finger against his forehead, and completely deadpan, pushed him right out. The door clicked shut. The world went quiet. I don't know when, but the door lock had somehow evolved into something I couldn't open. After wrestling with it for a bit, nothing happened. Not hearing little Chen throwing a fit outside, I felt a bit relieved. Turning my head, I saw Liu Ruyan hugging a first aid kit, staring at me looking super displeased. She shoved the kit into my arms and simply demanded, "Sick medicine." I really have no idea what those two got up to last night, for both of them to actually catch a fever. I resigned to my fate and started looking for medicine for her. By this point, Liu Ruyan had finally quieted down, just staring at me unblinking, terrified I'd disappear if she blinked. I popped a pill out and pressed it into her palm, and tried to negotiate. "Little Chen needs to take medicine too. Could you help me unlock the door?" Hearing this, Liu Ruyan's hand froze in mid-air. She didn't even take the medicine. Her eyes slowly turned red. In a tiny, super aggrieved voice, she accused me. "You're like this every time. You only care about him. You never care about me." I almost choked on my own breath. Since when? But then, for some reason, I remembered the day we reunited. The question Liu Ruyan asked. "So, all you want to talk to me about right now is little Chen." So is that what she meant back then? Trying to reason with a jealous lightweight is completely pointless. So I went with the flow and changed my tune. "There's no water here. I'm worried you'll choke on the pill, so I'm just going out to pour you some water, okay?" Liu Ruyan tilted her head, looking at me hesitantly for a moment, seeming to evaluate if I was telling the truth. But she didn't open the door. Instead, she leisurely walked back to the table, raised a wine glass, tilted her chin up and said, "No need to go out. I have water." And then, she just swallowed the pill, using that glass of red wine. She moved so fast I didn't even have time to stop her. My vision went dark. My first thought was, thank God it's not cephalosporins. I frantically flipped through the medication instructions, and then searched it up on my browser. After confirming I couldn't find any cases of this medication and alcohol causing poisoning, I finally let go of my tense anxiety. Only then did I realize I was covered in cold sweat. Feeling helpless, I said, "Liu Ruyan, unlock the door. I need to drink water." Liu Ruyan raised her half-finished glass and handed it to me with an innocent face. I glanced at it and ruthlessly burst her bubble. "This is red wine." "It's red. Is the water at your house red?" Liu Ruyan gave a guilty "oh," stood there visibly conflicted for a moment, then slowly dragged herself to the door and unlocked it. I stared at the open door, absolutely bewildered. She wasn't moved at all by a sick, feverish little Chen. She'd rather take her meds with wine than back down an inch. But now she caved so easily, just because I said, I want to drink water. Liu Ruyan stood by the door, looking so sleepy she was about to pass out. She said, then remember to come back, okay? After getting little Chen to take his medicine and put him to sleep, I promised I wouldn't sneak out. After hesitating for a moment, I still went back to Liu Ruyan's room. I just didn't want to see some absurd headline tomorrow like, Liu Group heiress dies at home after taking medicine with alcohol. Definitely not for any other reason. Pushing the half-open door, I saw Liu Ruyan sleeping quietly on the bed. I tugged at the blanket underneath her. Great, couldn't pull it out and didn't want to touch her. So I just grabbed the corners and haphazardly wrapped her up like a cocoon. In the dim bedroom, I silently watched her for a moment. Mission accomplished. Just as I was about to leave, the phone on the nightstand started ringing. Pear blossoms wither in the pavilion. Another year passes. Standing in the clear night, moonlight spills on the empty street. In the dream, a flute plays to the old moon. Waking up, tears stain a rouged face. Reciting, Xiao Chong, Shan, over and over. I was stunned. The fourth prince is here. It was old man Liu, calling. Under no circumstances should I be the one answering this. Just as I turned to leave, a hand grabbed the cuff of my sleeve from behind. The thin blanket slipped from her shoulders. She gripped it so tight, so very tight, glaring angrily at the ringing phone. As if terrified I was going to leave, she dragged me to the door with heavy steps, deadbolted the bedroom door right in front of me, then poured the rest of the wine from the bottle into a glass and tossed her phone right in. The phone actually kept ringing persistently in the wine for a bit, before finally going black and dying. After doing all that, Liu Ruyan turned to look at me. She blinked and said, hide. What the hell? Anyone looking at this would think someone's coming to catch us cheating. I'm guessing old man Liu is on his way over, and that's why she wants me to hide. Unable to hide my awkwardness and embarrassment, I shrugged it off and said, no need to go through all that trouble. I'll leave right now. I won't make things difficult for you. But Liu Ruyan didn't say a word, and still refused to let go. First, she led me to the walk-in closet, trying so hard to walk in a straight line, but still stumbling all over the place. Turns out she wasn't sober yet. The closet was an open-concept design, no wardrobes to hide a person in. So, looking pretty unhappy, Liu Ruyan dragged me back out, pulling me along as she rummaged around the bedroom. Finally, she silently stared at the bed for a moment, and then told me to get under the covers, throwing a tantrum if I didn't listen to her. Just as I popped my head out from under the blanket, I saw Liu Ruyan muttering to herself, no, I have to hide too. I was speechless. You have to hide in your own house. She ducked under the covers right along with me, until the darkness blocked out everything. I heard her let out a sigh of relief, and say to herself, this way, none of it will happen. My heart skipped a beat at that moment. Inexplicably, I suddenly remembered something. 5 years ago, Liu Ruyan almost completely broke ties with the Liu family for me. Until that day, when she got a call saying old man Liu was critically ill. The critical illness was fake. Liu Ruyan got trapped at the Liu estate and couldn't come back. It was pouring rain. The improperly operated tower crane hook slipped. I was rushed to the hospital. After that day, all hell broke loose. Everything changed. My parents' car crash. Liu Ruyan's love turning to hate. The endless cruelties fate threw at me completely broke me. I didn't know what to do anymore. I was just so tired. Trembling fingertips reached out to touch my cheek. Liu Ruyan's feverish breath was scorching hot, but she gently wiped the corners of my eyes. She said earnestly, it's okay now. They won't be able to find us. My vision blurred. I only just realized tears were actually falling from my eyes. But I couldn't say a word. I smiled bitterly and said, I really can't stand you. I can't stand her showing up again. I can't stand her forcing her way back into my life. I can't stand that she didn't do anything wrong. But Liu Ruyan just quieted down, gave a soft, oh. She tilted her head and asked in utter confusion, you hate me now? Were you hit by the magic that flips your feelings too? My tears completely spilled over. Seeing me stay silent for a long time, maybe trying to distract me, she suddenly whispered, Shh, the flowers are falling. But there are no flowers here. And there's no magic either. She never made us hide to cover anything up. She was saying, hide away, so fate can't find us. That evening, I took little Chen, who was clinging to me and refusing to let go, with me. Liu Ruyan's phone was busted, and now she was passed out again. I asked little Chen if he knew their nanny's phone number. Little Chen pulled out his little smartwatch, tapped on a specific name, asked super loudly in his clear, crisp voice, Auntie Zhang, my mom has a headache and drank again. Can you come over to the house? The person on the other end agreed immediately. She seemed completely used to Liu Ruyan being in this state. I couldn't help but ask him, does your mom get headaches a lot? Little Chen said like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Yeah, mom always has a headache. When she feels bad, she'll drink a little wine. It works better than sleeping pills. Because Liu Ruyan is a total lightweight, I always used to be the one taking drinks for her. But now she's using alcohol as medicine. I waited until Auntie Zhang arrived, with a suitcase in one hand and holding little Chen's hand in the other. His little head kept whipping back to look behind him, like he was terrified Liu Ruyan was going to pop out and snatch him away again, just like this morning. Right before we walked out the gate, Auntie Zhang suddenly called out to me. I told her little Chen's school transfer was already sorted out, so he won't have to keep bouncing back and forth between the two cities anymore. She was a bit taken aback, probably didn't expect it to happen so fast. She hesitated for a moment, then said, actually, Ruyan isn't usually like this. It was obvious she'd seen the absolute mess the bedroom was in. Struggling to find the right words, she added, as for today, today was probably just an accident. I gave a small smile and said, I know. How could I not know? When we were 18, the very first time Liu Ruyan tried alcohol, she only had one sip and passed out right on my shoulder. When I carried her home, she stood right back up. I thought she'd sobered up, but instead, completely deadpan, she poured all the fish food into old man Liu's most prized fish tank, mixed the sugar in the kitchen into the salt shaker, and casually tossed the key to the punishment room into the dining hall. Her eyes were glazed over, her steps were wobbly, but she stubbornly dragged me to sit under a tree and wouldn't let me leave. She started weaving something. Flower petals were fluttering down with the wind. I looked up, and through the falling shower of petals, I met a pair of bright, shining eyes. She stared at me blankly for a second, held up a pair of rings woven from grass, and urged me, don't let such a romantic vibe go to waste. Hurry up and propose to me. After we exchanged the rings, she said, one for each of us. Don't you dare lose it. And then she passed out cold. When she woke up the next day and remembered everything she'd done, she couldn't even look me in the eye. From then on, she never touched a drop of alcohol again. Thinking about the past, I couldn't help but smile again. I looked up and saw Liu Ruyan had woken up at some point, standing at the top of the stairs, looking down at me. Little Chen acted like he was facing a mortal enemy, grabbed me and bolted for the door without looking back, whispering, Dad, let's get out of here. Liu Ruyan didn't chase after us. I just heard her say, super softly, see you next time. So soft, it was like the brush of her lips that year. So soft, it was like the moment I proposed to her with that grass ring, making me wonder if it was all just in my head. Well then, see you next time. If there even is a next time. The new kindergarten little Chen transferred to is really close to my place. For almost a week after that, Liu Ruyan never showed up again. I was almost getting used to this kind of life, until one day my editor-in-chief suddenly came looking for me, looking weirdly at me. He asked kind of vaguely, hey G, do you have some kind of crazy background or connections? I was totally lost. Huh? He said, look, the heiress of the Liu group, this is the first time she's ever agreed to an exclusive interview, and she specifically asked for you by name to do it. I had question marks all over my face. The newspaper wasn't about to let an opportunity like this slide. Friday afternoon, Liu Ruyan just happened to be coming to the city for Fashion Week. Before that, she had an hour of free time. Like always, I prepped an outline beforehand. Ultimately, I decided to angle it, focusing entirely on the jewelry brand Liu Ruyan had built up over the years, deliberately skipping over the gossip everyone loves to read about, her love life. After all, Liu Ruyan and I both knew exactly what really went down back then. The torture of that unresolved tension hit its peak when Friday finally arrived. I took a deep breath, knocked on the door, and saw Liu Ruyan in a haute couture dress, sitting on the sofa in the lounge with her long legs crossed, looking elegant as ever. I placed the voice recorder right in the center of the table, asked a few simple, routine questions to get the interviewee relaxed. Then I got down to business, saying, I've heard that the Liu Group has never dabbled in the jewelry industry before. What was the catalyst that made Miss Liu start the brand? Flower. Ever since middle school, you've always wanted to study jewelry design, right? Later on, the brand Flower practically became a global sensation overnight. Usually, when faced with this question, most people would talk about their early exposure to design, their inspiration, or their passion for it. But she just looked at me, blinked, and said, to find someone. My fingers curled up out of nowhere, listening as she casually kept going. She said, there's this person who hid from me for a long time because of fate. I couldn't find him, and I was scared he couldn't find his way back home. She tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear, her tone totally relaxed as she said, Flower, appearing all over the globe, was never a coincidence. Big screens in malls and subways, promotional collabs with major IPS, Flower ads literally everywhere. She looked at me, smiled warmly, and said, this is the promise between us. If one day he saw Flower, I want to tell him, don't force yourself to be strong. I will always wait for you to come home. My hand shook. I dug my nails hard into my palms, keeping my face perfectly calm and collected, forcing myself to move on to the next question. I said, as far as I know, aside from Flower's designs, what it's most famous for is its charity work. For every single order made, Miss Liu, you donate a pretty massive amount of money. Liu Ruyan said, that's right. Every year, we allocate a portion of our revenue to fund charity work. She added, just like the flower you mentioned, every year, those donations are made in my husband's name. I couldn't take it anymore and clicked the voice recorder off. Exasperated, I said seriously, can we be professional here? We're working. Liu Ruyan blinked and clapped back without missing a beat. I've been completely serious this whole time. That literally is the reason Flower was founded. Or is it that you're deliberately trying to steer my answers in a specific direction with a hint of teasing? She said, Mr. G, you didn't seem to be like this before. Showing favoritism isn't very professional, is it? I was speechless. She totally flipped the question back on me. I had no choice but to turn the recorder back on and record the rest of the interview. She said, I've made a will. After I die, a portion of my assets will go to charity. The rest will be set up as a trust fund, entirely for my husband. Yes, you can look at it that way. As long as I'm dead, he will be the sole beneficiary. I asked, what about him? You mean my son? He'll be fine as long as he doesn't starve to death. I was speechless. I pretty much forced myself to get through the whole process before I could even give any concluding pleasantries. Liu Ruyan suddenly asked me, where's the ring? My reflex reaction was to reply, lost it ages ago. With an unreadable expression, she stepped closer to me, then raised her hand. Sitting right there in her palm was that grass ring. She said, if you lost it ages ago, then what's this? I froze. I instinctively patted my pocket. Still there. Crap, I got played. Looking up, I saw Liu Ruyan's dark eyes, looking at me with a half smile. My cover was blown. I was a bit mad out of embarrassment. Exasperated, I asked, what exactly are you trying to do? She said, am I not making it obvious enough? Liu Ruyan sat back down. Her expression turned serious, saying, I'm piecing together the future that was supposed to be ours. This was the deep-seated trauma I've never been able to heal from, the pain I can hardly bear to touch. I didn't want to face it, and I definitely didn't want history to repeat itself. I couldn't even fathom if, one day in the future, Liu Ruyan would once again look at me with those cold, disgusted eyes. But, I also thought about Liu Ruyan's random headaches, thought about how someone who never touched alcohol was now using it to numb herself, thought about that trust fund and will, thought about that conversation we had years ago, until we finally reunited years later. And then, she tells me that back then, after I threw everything away and ran, there was someone out there constantly looking for me, seeming to read my mind. Liu Ruyan said, remember to leave the door unlocked for me tonight. I didn't quite catch on and asked, "What?" She smiled slowly and gave me a meaningful reminder. Today is Friday. I suddenly remembered the day we reunited and what she'd said about coming to my place on Fridays to bond for the sake of little Chen's mental and physical health. I got a little flustered for no reason. I said, "Well then, the interview is over. Right, I gotta bounce. Then I suddenly realized I hadn't turned off the voice recorder yet. So, all that random nonsense we talked about at the end actually got recorded too. Feeling super annoyed, I panicked and reached for the voice recorder on the table, only to find out it had already been turned off at some point. Liu Ruyan let out a soft chuckle, like she could see right through me. She teased, "Look at you panicking. I turned it off for you ages ago." Right then, her assistant opened the door, reminding her it was almost time for the event. Liu Ruyan stood up and waved goodbye to me. A scattered breeze blew in, but I heard a rustling sound. I looked up. I saw that breeze pass right through Liu Ruyan's silhouette, and saw the flowers from when we were 18 falling once again. My mind was a complete mess. I turned down the assistant's suggestion to wait until Liu Ruyan finished her event so we could go pick up little Chen together. Carrying my backpack, I went to the kindergarten gates alone. There were tons of parents outside the gates. Kids were slowly being picked up one by one. Little Chen still hadn't come out until I saw Ito Joe. I have no idea what he went through, but he looked way more haggard than the last time I saw him. He pushed through the crowd and walked right up to me, gave a cold sneer, and suddenly said, "You must be pretty full of yourself right now." I furrowed my brows. I had no idea what he was talking about. He muttered to himself, "I should have known. The little one is sick, and the big one's got issues in her head too. I really shouldn't have believed that Liu Ruyan had already given up on you. I actually brought little Chen right to you." So that night, it was Ito Joe who brought little Chen to my doorstep. Because of the system's interference, Liu Ruyan searched for 5 whole years, but couldn't find me. Maybe he thought Liu Ruyan was completely over me. Or maybe he thought that once he ditched little Chen, who was just dragging him down, he could figure out a way to start over and conquer Liu Ruyan. He said, "Back then, she hated you so much. After being locked up by the Liu family for over 10 days, the moment she got out, the very first thing she did was go to the hospital to see you. She got a headache so bad she passed out and got hospitalized. Everyone hid it from her and forced you to divorce her. When she woke up, the first thing she did was look for you." He gritted his teeth and said, "I spent 5 whole years trying to conquer her. Even a rock would have warmed up to me by now. One has never even met his dad but refuses to acknowledge me. The other would rather die of pain than accept me. Both of them are so damn stupid." Just then, little Chen came out of the kindergarten. Seeing me, his eyes lit up, and he charged towards me. Ito Joe seemed to suddenly calm down. With a dark expression, he said, "Did you know? She went to the hospital for surgery later on. She can't have kids anymore. She'll only ever have little Chen. And she made a will leaving all her assets to you. A female led like that, as far as the system is concerned, has absolutely no value left to be conquered. My mission failed. According to the system's judgment, no matter how the conqueror tries to intervene, the persona the female lead has already established will completely collapse. So, the mission failed." His eyes filled with hatred. I suddenly got a really bad feeling. The next second, Ito Joe marched quickly toward little Chen. I saw the dagger slipping out of his sleeve. I hurriedly grabbed his hand to stop him, but he threw me off and stabbed fiercely toward little Chen. Unable to dodge in time, I only had time to throw myself in front of little Chen. In that split second, I thought of so many things. I thought of that year when I stood by the window looking down, and the sudden crying that erupted behind me. I thought of when Ito Joe first found me, smiling as he threatened me, "Once he gets a stepdad, he'll get a stepmom. He's got great days ahead of him." I thought about that night when he had a fever, and sent me a voice message crying and asking, "Do you not want me again?" I thought of me sitting on the edge of the bed, feeding him medicine. How he suddenly hugged me and whispered to me, "Dad, I love you." A dull pain spread across my back. Little Chen was terrified, his little hands clutching the hem of my shirt tight. He started crying loudly. With a pale face, I turned my head. The kindergarten security guards and the parents nearby had pinned down Ito Joe, who was laughing maniacally. Right on cue, Liu Rian showed up, fashionably latent. She ran over, grabbed my hand, and anxiously said, "I'm sorry. I'm too late." My vision was blurring. I shook my head, slowly, closed my eyes, my voice fading until it was almost gone. You found me. You found me, amidst all this fate. The next second, looking super annoyed, Liu Ruyan pinched my philtrum hard. "Stop acting so dramatic." He stabbed the laptop in your backpack. "What are you faking it for?" I was speechless. I thought, maybe when that flower petal fell, I finally got back the courage to fight fate again. If love is brave, then no matter how incredibly hard it gets, you will still always throw yourself in front of that person without a second thought. The sirens of the ambulance and police cars wailed as they arrived. The shadows on the ground intertwined intimately under the sunset. Liu Ruyan suddenly spoke up. She scoffed coldly and asked me, "Did you really lose the ring?" She seemed to care a lot, like she'd been holding that question in for a long time. I looked at her, smirked and said, "Nope. I have it on me right now. You can search for it yourself tonight." She pinched me again. "I'll see you every single day from now on." Liu Ruyan, extras, the first year after he left. She raised their child all by herself. Sometimes, Liu Ruyan really couldn't understand how raising a kid is more exhausting than actually giving birth to one. Such a tiny little thing. But his crying could pierce right through 3 whole floors. Even when his voice was practically gone from crying, he still wouldn't stop. Only occasionally, in the dead of night when she'd wake up from a dream, would she think of him. Emotion and logic were constantly fighting each other. She once couldn't accept it, to the point of passing out and being hospitalized. When she woke up, he was already gone. Old man Liu told her he took 2 million and agreed to the divorce, then vanished into thin air, never to be heard from again. She didn't care if it was true or not. She was just feeling completely lost. Was she really only worth 2 million to him? He couldn't even bother to take a bit more before he left. At that time, she hadn't yet sorted out the feelings between them. But she knew one thing clearly. Even if she hated him, she was going to lock him to her forever. The 3rd year after he left, she still hadn't found him. Because her logic was resisting her inverted emotions, she started getting headaches all the time. Even painkillers barely worked anymore. Ito Yo found her and asked, "Are you trying to die from the pain?" "None of your business." She frowned, too lazy to even bother answering. She just called the security guards, told them not to just let random people in anymore. Ito Joe wouldn't give up. He relentlessly hounded her, asking why she couldn't just give him a chance. Liu Ruyan said with a completely cold face, "My emotions are a mess. I didn't lose my memory, and even if I did, I still have my sanity." She was just cold to him. Such a proud person. Even her hatred felt like charity. So, no matter how much her feelings flipped, she'd never like him. The 4th year after he left. By then, Ito Joe was starting to show signs of cracking. Liu Ruyan, overhearing his arguments with the system more than once, she learned the truth about this world. With the system's help, Ito Joe possessed a skill that could invert emotions. Before this war, he had relied on it to easily clear several conqueror missions. He didn't cash in on the chance to be reborn. Instead, he got addicted to the thrill of controlling other people's lives. Jumping from one mission world to the next, he interrogated the system. Why is this clearly an S-tier vacation script? But the difficulty is so insanely high. Not sure what the system replied, but he furiously flipped everything off the table, cursing hysterically, "You damn system. You think you can just leave? Not enough energy. What about me? What am I supposed to do?" He even cornered her on the street, begging in a low voice, "Just like me. That's all it takes. Once I clear this mission and leave, you can reunite with him." Liar. She didn't buy a word of it. Looking at this broken, desperate man in front of her, she actually felt a twisted sense of satisfaction. She suddenly thought of G. Boda back then. When he woke up, all she left him was a signed divorce paper. He had no idea why things turned out that way. But she knew. Everyone has to pay the price for their choices. So forget about finishing any missions. Let everything just end in this world. Just die. Let them all die. She felt like everything was pointless anyway. The 5th year after he left, little Chen came over and had a massive fight with her. Every time there was a parent-teacher conference, he'd hide it from the family. When asked why, he just said he wanted Dad to go, not Mom. His tiny little body but his voice was cracking with anger and grievance. He yelled, "Bad mom! It's been so many years. And you still can't find Dad. We've been fighting for years." She just felt incredibly wrong. She was clearly the one who missed him the most. Her head started hurting again. Maybe because they had dragged this out too long in this world. The system's energy was weakening. She was actually getting used to this kind of pain. Visibly annoyed, Liu Ruyan pushed him away and said, "Then, go find him yourself." Fuming, little Chen turned on his heel to leave. He snapped back, "Fine, I will." That sentence seemed to wake her up. She suddenly paused and called out to little Chen. She asked him, "Do you still remember that Uncle Ito?" Little Chen gave a super reluctant yay. Liu Ruyan said, "Only he knows where Dad is." Just because she couldn't find him, didn't mean someone else couldn't. Because of the system's interference, she couldn't track down a single trace of him. But, what if they flipped it? Couldn't she use the system to find him instead? Little Chen's eyes went wide. He happily asked, "Really?" She truly stopped searching for Jibota's whereabouts, deliberately giving Ito-jo a sliver of false hope, acting like she had completely given up. But only she knew, giving up, not a chance in hell. And he actually found him. She only told little Chen to go home and pack some clothes, and he somehow managed to drop his smartwatch into the lake. Now he was crying and throwing a tantrum for his genius smartwatch. It was so loud, he wouldn't even take a brand new one. When she asked little Chen why, he sobbed and hiccuped, saying, "It has Dad's phone number on it. Jibota's phone number." Her heart couldn't stop aching with jealousy. She didn't even have it. She bent over, feeling around blindly. In the freezing, bone-chilling lake, she fished around for an entire night. Little Chen crouched by the lake, holding up a light for her, his cheeks puffed out. Behind them, the villa was brightly lit in the dark night. Before long, it started to rain again. When she finally fished it out, little Chen happily swapped the SIM card into the new watch, tossed the umbrella and the flashlight aside, and sprinted off on his stubby little legs without looking back. She was so pissed. Both of them were so damn heartless. She grabbed little Chen, glared at him, and demanded, "Give me that phone number." Pear blossoms wither in the pavilion. Another year passes. Standing in the clear night, moonlight spills on the empty street. In the dream, a flute plays to the old moon. Waking up, tears stain a rouged face. Reciting Xiao Chongshan over and over, half asleep and half awake. Liu Ruyan thought she saw him feeding her medicine, smiling bitterly at her and saying, "I really can't stand you." Could he not stand her anymore? Did he hate her now? Liu Ruyan didn't want to be hated. Feeling completely lost, she suddenly thought of a time, a long, long time ago, when Jibota proposed to her with a ring woven from grass. In that moment her heart had skipped a beat. She saw the flower petals falling down. If there were flowers, would he propose to her again? So she whispered, "Shh, the flowers are falling."